Recording. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Really excited about this chat. My good friend Joe, he's very qualified. I won't brag on you too much, but he's done a lot of work. Tony Robbins, Peter Sage, he does a lot of corporate stuff, and we made friends a few months ago, and we've been chatting pretty consistently and staying in touch. And I'm really excited to learn from you a little bit about emotional mastery.
Sure.
Emotional control seems to be one of the biggest things that I mean, shit, I personally struggle with, you know? So like, I know a lot of the people in the group are going to benefit a lot from this. And with that, I'll keep it kind of to a minimum and just hand it over to you, man. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone who's tuning in live. And if you're watching the recording, appreciate you checking it out. I'll give a little background, just some context, so you guys know, just elaborate on what Owen had mentioned, and then get into the topics for the day. So, yeah, we actually, so Owen, you and I met because well, let me back up. I had your audiobook recording of the transurfing book like years ago. And I like it was funny when I finally met you. I'm like, I've been listening to this dude's voice for like years. Like it sounded all too familiar when we finally got on the phone. But I had bought, I think, a book off your website and then just like emailed you, like emailed the support email about it or something, and it was you. So we started chatting. And just really grateful to call you a friend and get to hang out. We got to meet in Atlanta, which was cool. But yeah, as far as my progression goes, I kind of got into the coaching space through fitness, pretty big gateway industry for most people. Was working with clients at a CrossFit gym that I coached at, had online clients, and really would get stuck at helping them break through between the ears. Like really kind of getting their brains right, getting their minds right, and wrapped around what they needed to do to change. And so that led me to the personal development space. I'm currently a senior leader for Tony Robbins. I'm a master trainer for Peter Sage and his Elite Mentorship Forum program, and which don't want to give too much away, but we might have some funsies coming your guys' way as a result of that as well. I know Owen's been to some of Peter's programs; he's fantastic, and really just kind of fell in love with that space and able to share the work with folks to help them. So I do like corporate wellness and development coaching programs, like for leadership and team and culture and things like that as well on my own. But really, when we were catching up and I just said, hey, like I'm more than happy to come to the group and chat with you guys and share some stuff. So I want to make sure, this conversation, Owen, is kind of like a bit of an open dialogue to make sure that I'm giving the group what they want. So, Steph, Tristan, everyone else on the call, you're more than welcome to come off mute and interact. I don't want to just be a talking head for an hour. But really, we're here today to talk about mastering emotions, which, for most people is a topic they'll probably never look into really. And they tend to be confused as like, oh, I feel frustrated all the time. I feel overwhelmed. I feel anxious. But, unfortunately, they may not have the tools or resources to really kind of dig deep and understand, like, where is that coming from? How can I influence those feelings? How can I set up my mindset, my frame of reference to be able to be one step ahead, right? And not succumb to sort of that primal instinct when things don't go my way. And so a few tools we'll probably talk with you today about and share and so forth. But just real quick, if hey Owen, if you want to come off mute and like share, like, hey, as far as emotional mastery goes, like what do you need of? Like where do you have most trouble?
Sure. So it just seems super random. Some days I wake up and I feel like I'm battling demons. Some days I wake up and I feel great. Some days I can go out and get social and then get into like just a really good vibe. Sometimes it's like just a ton of weight to kind of break through and get into that vibe. It's super fun when I'm in that flow, like I feel like I'm not even there. Like
Uh,
like it's God essentially like working through me, but I can't really, I can't always, I should say, make it happen. I'm not real sure how to sometimes bust through that wall. And sometimes I'm just like, okay, I don't feel good. So I'm just, I'm not going to make a video. I'm not going to make this call, because I don't want this energy. Because it may sound a little woo or whatever. I mean, we're in the right place for that.
yeah,
But it's like,
bring
I
the
don't,
woo.
yeah, right. But I don't want this energy, to be out there. Like I don't want to call this person who, is a friend or a client or potential partner or whatever, because I'm like in this funk and it's like gonna come through.
Right.
So a lot of times I'll try and fight the emotions, and I know that doesn't work. So if I try to fight through it, then it just makes it worse.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
really is kind of from my standpoint, where I'm at. Like a lot of days, I would say most days I wake up and I feel pretty good. And even when there's challenges, even when there are certain things to be upset about, I can usually, keep a pretty sunny disposition.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I generally identify as the sun,
Yeah.
but sometimes I am the clouds.
Yeah.
So it seems to be not a lot of rhyme or reason with how these moods start out. And I'm a Cancer astrologically too, so I know we have like all these moods and all that and people talk about. That's true. I do feel very deeply and have a lot of emotions. So as far as kind of like reining it in and just maybe working through some of those days where I'm kind of under a little bit of a dark cloud and,
Yeah.
and getting through that, I think that's one of my challenges.
Okay. So, and just so I'm hearing you right. So basically being able to take yourself from a reactive kind of on the back foot position to proactive. And if those emotions do rear their head, how do you, snap out of it and get into more empowering states?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Steph, how about you?
I would say that right now I'm dealing with what do you call it? Empathy exhaustion. I'm
Sure.
taking care of my dad who's not
Yeah.
doing well.
Yep. Yep.
And so this has been on a daily basis, living with someone who's really sick and trying to stay uh, above that. And
Yes.
it's been getting the best of me lately. So I've been
Okay.
trying to do things to kind of keep myself active. But I also find that I'm working from a place of guilt.
Sure.
So I don't really know how to balance that. I don't
Yeah.
know how to make my boundary stronger than my empathy right now.
Yes.
And so I find that I'm losing the things that I need to do for myself because somebody's constantly needing me. And I need to draw a line,
Yeah.
and I don't quite know how to do that yet.
For sure, no doubt, and we'll talk about some of that today on the call. But appreciate the two of you being so open and honest with that because it gives me a good frame of reference to begin with. Okay, so I'm just gonna hop in. Obviously, like you guys are here, you're active. Stop me at any time if you have questions or want to dive deeper on anything. But a few kind of like you know fundamental things. Okay, is and this actually is a good reminder from transurfing is people typically when they feel stuck or they feel overwhelmed or whatever, it's because they don't realize they have more options available to them. They don't realize there's other solutions available. So they feel stuck. They feel
Yeah.
anxious. Like, oh, this is the only road I can go down. This is the only way, like how I'm going to feel today when I wake up. This is the only way to deal with my dad right now with what's going on. But as you know, as we learn in transurfing, right, is you always have a choice. That to me, like, and I was just on a coaching call with a client the other day and was reiterating that point to her. It was like, you always have a choice. Like you could literally get on a plane right now and fly across the world and be gone. Like you can do whatever you want. And the same is true for you emotionally. It doesn't make it the easiest thing on the planet, but just the awareness to know that you have a choice and that exists is very empowering. Okay, so we always want to remind ourselves that we have that option available. Now, first things first, we're gonna go through. This is like a old school NLP technique that I think is going to be very helpful. Super simple, like it's laughably simple, but that's why we talk about it and it works because it's easy to remember. So this tool is called perceptual positions. And if you've ever done any NLP work or anything, they always have these like cool names for the tools, but it's like way simpler than they make it out to be. So all perceptual positions is understanding the perception of different positions in a scenario. So I'll use like an analogy to make this easy. So imagine if the whole group of us we went to like a football game, right? Owen's like, "Come to Atlanta, we're going to watch football. Like this is awesome, right? We're tailgating, it's a good time." We go and we watch the game. If you were a player on the field, you would have a much different experience than if you were in the blimp above the stadium flying over top during halftime, right? You'd have a very different experience if you were sitting in the stands, and a very different experience if you were in the box commentating on the event, right? And so when we think about, like, Steph, I'm gonna use you as an example in this, just because you kind of gave me one to work with, and again, appreciate your openness and vulnerability, because this is I think it'd be a great tool for you to explore. Is right now it's overwhelming sometimes, or it's a lot to work with your dad because you're seeing it from your perspective.
Mhm.
So are you open to doing this right now? You want to jump in a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
for sure.
So let's take is there like a recent interaction that you had with him where you were like, man, this is tough, or this is, I need to set my boundaries, or kind of getting at your wits end?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So,
And you don't even need to explain it. We can keep this as humane as you like. You don't even need to go into it with us and share all that, because you know your experience.
mhm.
Okay, so just like take a sec. You can kind of remind yourself of what that was like. Okay, got it. And now you've already seen it from your perspective. Okay, so what was the conclusion you came to in your mind as a result of that? Was it, hey, I gotta set up better boundaries. I don't have the energy for this. Like, what was coming up for you?
Yeah, I need to set better boundaries. I'm tired.
Tired?
How much more do you want from me? How much more do I need to sacrifice? When is this going to stop?
Yeah,
When is it going to stop?
sure, sure. Okay, so we're gonna put a pin in some of those. You're asking a lot of questions. Okay, just remember questions. We'll come back to that. Okay, so now what I want you to do is, and if you want, you can close your eyes. You can kind of like really imagine this. We'll make it a little more real from your dad's perspective. What's your dad's perception of the situation? What would he say out loud?
What his character would say, or what I think he really feels inside.
I mean, you know him better than anyone here, right? So like, what was he really feeling? What would he say? Is it, hey, like I need you right now. I need help. Like what's his perception of the situation?
I think his perception of the situation is that he's terrified and that he needs help.
Okay, terrified of what?
Um, Terrified of dying, I think.
Sure.
I think he's terrified of being left alone, of being abandoned. And he's asking a lot because I also believe he's even afraid to go into his issues, like his problems, or to seek help from other people.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a man.
I yeah, yeah. And actually, what I find is what's happening is he's acting like a little boy, very childish. And I think this is where I'm also having a bit of a problem because it's like I've become the mother
Yeah, for sure.
to my
And so
daughter.
this is what ends up happening, right? Is when we get into a very vulnerable, I promise I can speak, vulnerable position, we tend to fall back on like primal instincts. And so that's why you see, I mean, this happens all the time. Like you could probably, I mean, anyone listening to this, either live or recording, I guarantee you that you worked for somebody at some point in your life where you were like, that is a 13-year-old trapped in a grown-up's body, right? Like everyone, yeah, I totally get that, right? It's you can like biologically, chronologically be your age, but emotionally you can be a child. And the more stressful, the more like traumatic an event is, the more it's going to pull from that childlike response. So it's not your dad's not a bad guy, right? It's just he's only working with the tools he has. And so in exploring what he might say, right? Hey, he's terrified. Like that's a heavy word. There's a lot of emotion that comes with the word terrified, right? It begins to give us a level of compassion for where that person's coming from, right? And so perceptual positions is your position in this scenario. It's the other person's position. So now we know how you feel. Hey, I'm exhausted. I need more better boundaries. Your dad's, scared, terrified of being alone, terrified of death. Like obviously very normal reactions, right? So what I want you to try and do now is let's imagine a third party, somebody who doesn't know either of you, that's watching this interaction that you are remembering. And what would that person be witnessing? Like if like someone on the streets watching the two of you interact, what's that person saying?
That's a good question. I don't know.
It's okay.
I have no.
If you could know, if you could just take a guess. And if you want, like you could sit up in your chair, take a breath, close your eyes, like go back to that moment, like go back to that interaction. And again, you don't have to tell us what happened. You were there, you know. And
Mhm.
so imagine if there was a fly on the wall, third party, just observing. They weren't even interacting with you. And then they were going to turn around and tell their friend what they just saw. What would they say? Just gut reaction.
My gut reaction would be to put the blame on me, to say, "Wow, look at her. I mean, her poor dad's so sick, and here she is trying to figure out what she's going to do with her life, trying to move forward in her life. Like how selfish."
Yeah.
And then I think that's the story I keep running in my mind.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of that guilt comes from.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and again, really appreciate you playing with me here and do because this is a great example. This is a perfect example of being able to use, like you can use this tool, like when you feel stuck, hey, I'm going to put myself in different positions at the football game. Right now, you're on the field. It's real. You're in it. It's hard, right? You're like fourth quarter, like this is getting tough, right? Trying to win this thing. Let's look at it from the stands. What are we watching here? Let's look at it from the blimp over the stadium. Like you can remove yourself emotionally at these different levels and begin to kind of see it for what it is. Okay. And it doesn't, you're not like, you're not being a bad person. You're having completely normal reactions to a very tough situation. And so, what's cool about this, the more you play with it, you can see, okay, you see where you're coming from, you see where your dad's coming from. You have a different level of grace and compassion for your dad by seeing it from his space. But that third party person is seeing two people interact, not just you, right? So they can begin to see, hey, like Steph is going through a lot. Hey, her dad is going through a lot. You can kind of begin to see it for what it is. And at the end of the day, and this is a key, like you guys can write this one down. At the end of the day, an event is just an event.
Hmm.
Like if I'm watching you and your dad argue or something, like it's not any skin off my back. It's not my dad, you know? It's just to me, it's just another thing I'm observing. So when we look at it objectively, we can remove some of the emotion and begin to kind of like look through it more objectively and analyze and discover next steps without having the emotion and the story tied to it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And we find that like as if we stay in the story, like the things we keep telling ourselves, and I'm going to come back to that questions piece in a moment. That's like the glue that keeps us stuck to that problem. Right. Like and it's I subtly kind of stopped you from doing it before, but you wanted to plunge into like all the background and the story and the this and the that of that event, right?
Yeah,
And
I wanted to explain it, of course, so that I don't look
yeah.
so bad. I'm so afraid. I think deep down inside, I'm like, oh my God, I'm just afraid that I'm such a bad person and everyone's going to see that.
You're not.
Um,
You're not.
and
You're a
that's the
human.
story. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You're a human. Right. So and we're gonna do some more stuff that I'm gonna show you how to like manage this. But this is where it starts is if we can take a second to step back and observe from different positions, like and so here's an example. Like I have a toddler at home, which if you have kids, like it's can be very challenging, right? They're big emotions, all that kind of stuff. It's tough parent to kid, it's tough parent to parent, you know. But this is a tool that I use all the time to say, hey, like, okay, I feel stressed out. My wife's clearly stressed out. Well, what's she probably thinking from her perspective? Like she works a very, I think, a tough job. She's a social worker. To me, I don't know how she does that all day, right? It's like long days, tough topics to talk about all the time. Like, okay, maybe I'm gonna I need to set my boundary. Okay, fine, but I'm gonna put that aside for a moment to make sure that she has what she needs because I can see it from that perspective, right? A third party might say, hey, this actually looks like a pretty normal functioning family. It's not as dysfunctional as they might think it is. This is normal stuff, right? It's normal for you to feel the way you feel with your dad. It's normal for your dad to feel the way he feels. You're not a bad person. He's not a baby.
yeah,
This is a normal interaction, right? So in a matter of a minute or two, you can use this to begin to understand where you're coming from, which you already know, where your dad's probably coming from. And then like third party, what's objectively, what's really going on here? And then you decide like which position you want to move forward with in your consideration of how you act. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
So like very, very simple tool. Now, Owen, you're not off the hook. I'm coming back for you, so don't worry. But this goes for the two of you, is when it comes to managing our emotions, we don't want to just jump right to the emotion that's happening in real time. We want to try and get a step like where is it coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And when I said before about an event is just an event, right? Things only matter to us based on the meaning we assign them, right? And so how do I assign meaning to things? I assign it based on what I focus on. So here's an example. If like if my girlfriend dumped me, right? I could focus on it being the end of my world. Like, this is the worst thing ever. Boo hoo. Or I could say, hey, you know what? They left so they could free up the right person to show up and be with me. I can shift that focus. We'll talk about how to do that. The fastest way to shift your focus is questions.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So questions, this is a Peter quote. He says this all the time. Questions are the steering wheel of the mind.
That's a writer downer for sure.
That is a writer downer a couple times.
Mm.
That, as Pete would say, that's a tattoo on the inside of your eyelids. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So questions are the steering wheel of the mind. They're the fastest way to shift your focus. Okay. So, Steph, in your case, when it comes to, let's say, a situation with your dad, right now you're focused on, you know, like you had said a couple questions before, like when is this going to end?
Mm-hmm.
When do I get to rest? Like
Yes.
when's he going to grow up? Like stuff like that, right? Or Owen, if you wake up in the morning, it's like, why do I feel like this?
Mm-hmm.
Like those kind of questions are like these sort of endless loop questions. Like you're always going to find an answer, right? And like even if it's something like, and I'll show you some examples in a second, but when it's those sort of like negative type questions, why questions are tough because why is a very accusatory word, right? So if we can switch to like how and what questions, those are more sort of open-ended. You can be a little more creative. Like if you ask yourself the question like, why is this happening to me? You're always going to find an answer, and it's like never ending. You're just going to keep finding answers of why the situation sucks. But let's shift our focus through questions, which is super simple. So, and Steph, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but like that situation with your dad, you could ask a more empowering question and get a more empowering answer. You could say, what's great about this situation? And your brain's going to go, nothing. That's the initial reaction, right? And so I just did this to you a second ago. You're like, I don't know, right? And I said, well, if you did know, like if you did know an answer, what would it be, right? And so instead of saying like, hey, what's great about this situation with your dad, your brain might go, that's a dumb question, nothing. Well, if there was something great,
Mm.
what would that be? You want to answer
There
that?
is.
What is
Yeah,
it?
there is.
Go
I
for it.
mean, I have a relationship with him that I never had before. Like we live together and I know he's sick, but we're mainly in peace most of the time, except when there's there's an issue. But I have the attention I think I've always wanted as a child, and now I have it in another way, but it really has brought us closer together, definitely. And I try to focus on that a lot of the times, but there are days where I go into victim mode and then the whys come out. Why me? Why
Yeah,
this? So yeah, you're
yeah,
right. It's a very accusatory question, the why, but yeah.
yeah. So the
And
how and what questions. What's great about this?
yeah,
What can I be grateful for about this situation? Like at least you have your dad. There's people who don't even
yes,
have that. There's people who've never met their dad, and they never
yes.
will, right? Or they lost them very early or untimely or whatever, right? So, and it's not to make you feel bad. It's just to recognize, like, what do you have? Like, what's great about this? What can I be grateful for? Hey, what's something I could appreciate about my dad right now? That's a great question.
That
Pat
is
myself on the
great.
back for that one, right?
That's
So
good.
so Owen, for you, right? Like, what's great in my life right now? Or let's say, and these are like, I mean, I'm kind of get you guys in the feels, you know what I mean? But you could even go weirder with it. You could be like, what's funny about this right now?
Oh yeah. That's definitely a good
Mm.
one.
I mean, you're a comedian, you know what I mean? Like you have such an interesting view on the world. Like you, when I talk to you on the phone, like you and I are always cracking up when we're talking, right? But you find like these little, I think of it like a rock climber when they're holding on to like this tiny little edge of a rock to climb, you know? Like you find these little edges of humor that like no one would ever, they'd overlook. Like that is a skill, that's a superpower. Use it, right? Hey, what's funny about what's ironic about this? You know, what's funny about this? And then your brain goes, nothing, duh. And you go, well, if something was funny,
All right.
what would it be? And you just kind of double down. Um, you know, what could I be grateful for? Who loves me in my life? Who do I love? You know, that kind of stuff is going to pull you out of the to me, the why me situation so fast, so fast, and get you focused on something else. Okay, it doesn't mean that that's going to stay the rest of the day. You got to, you know, nurture it and cultivate it a little bit, but it's going to pull you out of the mud, so to speak.
That's good.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this helpful so far?
Already it's working.
Great,
I
great,
already
perfect.
feel a distance. Like I'm not in the mud. Like I'm out. Like I actually felt it physically. Like it just something kind of stepped outside of me. It's really bizarre.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of, you know, recap us up to now. So we want to understand the different perceptual positions in a given scenario. This helps us understand from our perspective, which we already know, the story we tell ourselves, yada yada, but the other person's perspective, and then a third party that's objective to the situation, right? Like there's uh, an example Peter uses that this one really stuck for me when he said it. He was like, if you imagine like a baby zebra on the savannah, right? Like baby zebra just hanging out. There's a mom zebra, and there's like a lion in a bush or hiding behind a tree or something, right? And the lion comes out and snatches up the baby zebra. To the mom zebra, it's like the worst day ever, right? Literally horrible. Couldn't be more terrible. To the lion, they get to feed their cubs now. It's the best day ever. And the tree doesn't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
these are the different positions. So we kind of move ourselves around on the chessboard, so to speak, to understand. Okay. Now, as we do this, we're trying to assign a more powerful or empowering meaning to things because we decide what things mean. And I'll get more in depth about this in a second. How do we do that? We do it through shifting our focus. How do we shift our focus? The fastest way is through questions. We try to reduce or eliminate why questions because why is very accusatory sounding. And we focus on how and what questions. You know, how can I make the situation better? What's great about this? What's funny about this? How can I appreciate something about this other person right now? That kind of stuff. And really what you're doing in that moment is you're like essentially, not to get again, this is a good place for woo, is you're elevating your own consciousness in that scenario. Right? We're sitting pretty low on the ladder when it's like, oh, you know, woe is me, boo hoo, like that kind of stuff. When it's like, hey, what's great about this? We start to dig ourselves out. Hey, what can I be grateful for? We're ascending toward love and compassion. That's really what we're doing. And questions are the fastest way to do that. 100%. Okay. Now, I'm all for like meditation, journaling, all those things. Like we should do those things. But I'm giving you like the hand to hand melee, like in the moment stuff, right? Like get you going a bit faster. Okay. So that's where we're at up to this point. um, Helpful, good.
Very.
Okay, great. Now the next piece I would want to dig into a bit with everybody here is, and this one's something I'm very passionate about, and I think a lot about is just language. Like the words we use matter, and there is this like epidemic where people just sort of speak in hyperbole all the time. It's like the dude at Starbucks got your order wrong. Like, that guy's the worst. It's like, is he though? Like, is he really the worst? Like, yeah, I think he just maybe, you know, had a lapse, said brain fart, whatever. Like, it's not the worst. It's a minor inconvenience. You know what I mean? But when we talk about assigning meaning to things, words are emotionally charged. They're inherently emotionally charged. They have meaning already within them. And the meaning is specific to the user. In other words, if I say the word love to somebody, that might mean intimacy. To somebody else, it might mean companionship, right? You get love from different places. I might get it from my marriage. Someone might get it from their pet. Like, I love my dog. He's the best, right? Mine's, you can't, you might hear him snoring over here. He's sleeping right next to me. But those words are emotionally charged. And so we say things like, this sucks, or that's the worst, right? Or like, that guy's a freaking idiot, like that kind of stuff. Like, you're essentially, you're using these words and it's firing off this cascade of biochemistry for you to feel the meaning behind that word. So, how you describe your experience becomes your experience. The word you use to describe your experience becomes your experience, meaning you feel it fully. And if you're on this call right now or listening to this call and you don't believe me, if you think that's BS, if you've ever had a sexual fantasy, then you know this is real, right? You're imagining it, you're thinking about it. There's language involved in your mind. You feel it in your body. We won't go into detail, but you know what I mean, right? Okay. And so it is, I think, critical that we are very cognizant of the words that we use. And when they survey people to figure out, like, hey, how many, and I'll ask the two of you, like, how many emotions do you think people feel in an average, like an average person feels in an average week? Just like throw a number.
Hundreds, thousands, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
would say close to
Hundreds.
100.
Yeah. The average amount of feelings somebody feels in a week is 12.
What?
We have
It's the same emotions. There's 12 core emotions that we feel repeatedly. Is
no, so the reasoning is people only describe how they feel with like 10 or 12 words. So when you say like, oh, how'd you feel this week? I felt happy, sad, bummed out, stressed, excited, like you start to run out of words. So in the English language, we have about, I think it's like over close to 4,000 emotion words in the English language. 4,000 emotion words. We use we use 12. Like, that sucks. 12. So what we want to do is, over time, is expand that vocab a little bit, because the more precise you can be in how you describe your experience becomes your experience, and the emotion attached to those words is going to shape how you feel. If you say, like, actually, this is a good example. My wife, she still does it a little bit, but she stopped because I was, bugging her so much. She would describe everything as crazy. Like, oh, that's crazy. Like, or like, even if it was like good, like, oh, that's crazy. Or like, it was bad, like, that's crazy. Everything was crazy. And I'm like, you seem kind of anxious, but you describe things as crazy all the time. And crazy implies like disorder, like you don't have control, which would lead to anxiousness because humans crave order, right? So I'm like, why don't we let's like expand our palette a little bit?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So again, we have on average 12 words that we use. I'm going to give you a tool here in a second. If you look at like the Bible, I think the Bible has like 12,000 words in it, like different words if you count the thes, ands, that kind of thing. 12,000. Shakespeare in his works used 30,000 different words.
Wow.
30,000. And a lot of them he made up. And you wonder, like,
yeah.
why did his works last through the ages? Because he had a broader palette to paint from. He was able to describe things like so incredibly, where you're like, what? Like, I can see what he's saying. You might need to look on the left side of the book where it translates it into like normal today English. You know what I mean? But like you like really kind of feel and see what he's saying versus like this is good, this is bad, Neanderthal stuff. So here's a tool I want to share with you guys. Can I share my screen on?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think I'm sending a request. There we go.
Here we go. You should have it.
Okay. So let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's coming
Okay.
up.
You got it. So this is the wheel of emotion. Is it really tiny or is it big enough?
I can see it's. I mean, it's got a lot on there.
So yeah, I can zoom in, I think too.
That's
Oh,
good.
let's see. Okay. There we go. Well, whatever. I'll roll with it. So if you look in the center, these are like kind of common emotions that people feel: bad, fearful, angry, disgusted, sad, happy, surprised. Nothing too crazy there. But when you say, I felt, let's say, fearful, right? That fear is the core emotion that you're feeling. Let's get more specific. Did you feel scared or did you feel insecure? Two different things. Oh, and you gave a great example of this week. You posted about guilt versus shame.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people will overlap the two or confuse the two. But and you got a really great response on your post about that, right? People are like, hey, I never thought of it that way, or hey, that clears it up for me, or whatever, because you're pointing out like just the raw difference in those two words. Now we'll go a step further. If you felt scared, did you feel helpless or did you feel frightened? Like that's like the next level down. And so the more specifically you can get at describing that experience, the better off you're going to be because you're not going to have this like broad brush, like you're not going to be feeling the same thing all the time, right? So like I think like anger is a good example. Did you feel let down or did you feel frustrated, right? Were you mad or aggressive? Well, those are two different things. Like aggressive, you could be hostile, like belligerent's even like a good word. But mad, you could have just been furious. One of them, you're taking it out on everyone around you. The other one, you might be keeping it to yourself. Two very different outcomes, right? And so, what's cool about this is the more you work with a tool like this, just day to day, like you pick here and there, you find yourself. Someone says, "Oh, this is like the." Actually, I just watched a comedian who made a joke about this. Owen, he's like, "Guys in the room." He goes, "How was your day?" And everyone goes, "Good." He's like, "That's the normal guy reaction. That's acceptable. That's what you're
That's
supposed to do."
right.
Right? That's the normal guy reaction. He's like, ladies are going to tell us their whole story. He goes, I don't want that. Give me good, and I'm good. Um, anyway, I'm butchering the bit, but the point is you can take something where your typical average response, like, oh yeah, that sucked, and you can find a word that like is less, say triggering, but less emotionally charged is a better way to say it. So if you're feeling very stressed out all the time, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling like you can't cleave yourself out of the position you're in. If you feel like you're bogged down, whatever the way you describe it, I would look at how you describe it and find a word that's less charged up. So, Owen, I'm gonna put you on the spot for this one. So you say you wake up and you're not feeling great. How would you describe that?
uh Attacked emotionally,
Okay,
um crippled.
crippled. Oh, that looks okay. That's perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
that is an intense way to describe that. Emotionally crippled. Now, if that really is what's going on, then you've done it accurately. Okay, great. Is that what's really going on?
Yeah, I just it's weird. It's not exactly what's going on. It is an emotion that seemingly is coming out of nowhere.
Okay,
So there's
so
really, yeah, not a lot of, I don't understand the cause, which is back to the why thing.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So I just feel, yeah, just frozen, I would say.
gotcha. Okay, is there a way that you could describe that scenario, that situation, that feeling that's a little less emotionally charged? And you can use the wheel. Like I'll scroll down a little bit so you can see the sad
Yeah, yeah,
ones.
yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So like use what's in front of you.
Probably like uncertain. Uncertain would be less emotionally charged. Yeah.
Okay. Crippled, frozen, uncertain. Like you could be uncertain about like where you want to get dinner tonight. You know what I mean? So it takes this really immobilizing position you're in and say, hey, you know what? I'm just a little uncertain about how I really feel, or I'm uncertain of where this is coming from. And it takes you out of this like quite literally crippled position into one where you put the power back in your hands in an instant,
That's so good.
right? So now we have that component. It works the other way, the other side of the spectrum as well.
Hmm.
So you can take experiences that are good and ramp it up, right? And you could say, like, you know, this is incredible. This is amazing. This is breathtaking. You know, you can describe it in ways that charge it in a positive way and turn up the intensity. See the difference?
Yeah.
And so it's like there's a reason that I'm doing like this is probably feels and seems very simplistic. Is one, because it is. Two is if it's not simple, then no one's going to do it. And three is it makes this accessible to anybody. Anybody can do this. And so if you're talking to somebody and they're like really just distraught, like they're all over the map, and you're like, they'll say, "Oh, I'm so depressed." Like, are you depressed or are you just sad? And actually, there was a Tony event I was at it was last year, and kind of in between, like while things are going on in the arena, we're out kind of walking around, just trying to get people back in the room, making sure they're taken care of, things like that. And from time to time, like we'll catch somebody and we have to do an intervention, like right there, like right in the moment. And so my buddy Jared and I were on the leadership team walking around, and this guy comes up to us and he's like, "Oh, I really need some help." We're like, "Yeah, what's up, man?" He goes, I'm so depressed. I'm depressed." He's just saying depressed over and over and over again. And so Jared's like, "Yeah, can I just ask you a quick question?" He's like, "Sure." And Jared's like, "How do you know you're depressed?" And you could see like the gears turning like in his head, like he didn't really have a good answer. And before he said anything, because like a good like 15, 20 seconds went by, Jared's like, "Well, how do you know you're depressed and not just like really sad?" And the guy smiled and he goes, I don't know." And he's like, "So maybe you're," Jared's like, "maybe you're just sad." And the guy's like, "I am sad." He was like pumped to be sad because it pulled him out of that like dark, deep, depressed state. When he realized, he's like, "I'm not clinical." He's like, "A doctor's never told me I'm depressed. I'm just describing it as depressed." But in a 3-minute discussion, we got him pulled out of the hole he was in. He went and grabbed a bottle of water, went right back into the event. All in how he was describing his experience. Okay. So those kind of three tools alone we've covered so far, which is the different perceptual positions, understanding different positions, appreciating those other positions, asking yourself more empowering questions, focusing on how and what questions, not why questions, and expanding your, actually, I guess, ironically, this looks kind of like a palette, expanding your palette to paint from in terms of vocabulary helps with you beginning to master your emotions.
That's good.
Great. Joe, question. You
Yes.
talked about like emotionally charged feelings, right? When someone is peaking, for example, and I'll just give a random example. You and your partner have a business together, and then you find out your partner's been stealing and the business is going under and you've lost everything.
This
Now
sounds like
you're
a very specific example, Steph.
it isn't. It isn't. I was just thinking, I'm like, what would get me into a rage? Or a partner cheats on you, for
Sure,
example.
sure.
That is an instant for a lot of people, a
Mhm.
massive emotional charge, right?
Yep, yep,
A lot of times we're unconscious in that charge.
yep.
Uh, Things start to take over. But there is sometimes a moment where it's like, there's a like, how does one bring the charge down just a little bit to get to, okay, I need to ask myself some questions, or let me change perceptions here, or perspectives. Because that's one of the things that I deal with. It's the emotional charge is so high
Yep.
that I get a little lost and I don't know how to bring myself back down unless I use numbing things to numb myself with,
Yep.
you know?
I got you covered, Steph. So I'm gonna teach you the super secret ninja trick right now. You ready? So this is the thing. A couple thoughts. One is when when we don't know how to handle something internally, we always reach externally to try and fix the thing. This is why people do drugs, they drink alcohol, right? They don't have they not they don't have. I'm a firm believer everyone has way more resource within them than they really know. They're not aware of what they have available to them internally to handle that thing. So they reach out externally. I'm going to take pills. I'm going to drink myself, until I pass out. I'm going to, you know, probably overshare to friends who don't want to hear it, stuff like that, right? When you are running that pattern, and I'll tie it into like the jealousy, like someone cheated on you thing in a second to kind of see it like in action. All you're doing when that happens, like you're in this charged state, is you're running a pattern. It's a script, right? Like this thing happened, doesn't matter what the thing is. Now I'm feeling a certain way. When I feel that way, I get tense, I yell, I focus on what's bad. Like there's a pattern you're running. It's like playing a song on a CD. It's just a pattern. You spin the disc and it plays the song every single time. It's like a record every single time. How do you change that? You have to interrupt the pattern. You need to scratch the record or scratch the CD so it can't play that pattern anymore. It can't play that song. How do we do that? The fastest way, two fastest ways. One is your physiology, your body. Like literally get up and move, go somewhere else, go for a walk, get out of the room you're in. If you're sitting down, stand up, take a deep breath, do anything different with your body. And I guarantee you, it'll give you at least enough of a gap to interject some intellect and fix yourself, get yourself correct. Okay. So the rule is physiology first, physiology first, every time. The second piece is, and we talked about this already, is shifting your focus. Ask yourself a more empowering question. So we won't do the physiology thing for the cheating thing because like we don't need to right now. We're just talking through it. But if somebody came to me and was like, "Oh, I'm so pissed, like my girlfriend cheated on me," and blah blah blah, like all this stuff, right? Now, obviously, I'm not going to ask this necessarily right away to the person unless I know them well, but get into the conversation a bit, make sure there's rapport, the whole thing. But why do we get so mad if somebody cheats? Like, why is that an issue? Like, what do we feel if we were to be cheated on? It's
Betrayal.
Betrayal, yeah.
betrayal. Okay, we might even feel, let's say, jealous,
Sure.
Mhm.
right? And so the question might be, like, jealousy really is we're upset that someone is, you know, loving on or paying attention to somebody else and not us. My question would be, well, what right do we have to decide who loves us? We don't. We have no right to impose on anyone else who they're supposed to love. Now, it doesn't mean the person's being an awesome person, right? They're obviously doing something that's like awful and terrible, but we have no right to decide who they get to choose to love or interact with or whatever. That's their decision. Okay. What we do have a right to do, we have every right to be the example of what good behavior looks like. We have every right to be the invitation to help somebody who can't help themselves. Make sense? And so when we look at, like, yes, you're emotionally charged. Yes, it sucks. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel what you feel, right? Like I've been cheated on before and it's horrible, right? It feels terrible. Um, like there was a woman I was dating, actually how things always work out. The woman I was dating before my wife and I got together, there wasn't any cheating, but she dumped me like out of the blue. Like, I thought we were going to get married. I was like so invested in this relationship. Dumped me out of the blue. And I it was funny. I was pulling myself out of it pretty quick, like in the same day. And what did it for me was my roommate at the time helped me shift my focus. And he shifted my focus from what I was focusing on, which was like, oh, like she doesn't love me, like yada yada, to a more empowering focus. And he literally what he said to me, he goes, dude, he's like, you're the kind of guy where like you're never gonna be alone. Like people always love to be around you, like you're never gonna be by yourself. So this feeling of like loneliness or abandonment that I had, it shifted my focus to, oh wait, like I'm surrounded by great people. And it got me thinking, asking a better question, who who am I surrounded by in my life? Like who is around? Who is in my corner? And the list is like endless, you know? So when it comes to like the cheating thing, the jealousy thing, like, hey, what is actually good about this scenario? Well, I weeded out somebody who shouldn't be in my life. And now again, to say, it doesn't mean you're gonna like be a superhero and like never feel bad things. You need to feel bad emotions because they provide the contrast so that the good emotions can seem and feel that good, right? A sunny day is only great because we have rainy days. Same thing. So when it comes to, and I know I have a few minutes left, and apologies, I have a noon meeting I have to go to, unfortunately, but um, when it comes to mastering our emotions, I'm sharing these tools with you as a way to begin when that little gap does open up. So the great question, Seth. When you can open up that little bit of clarity in your mind of like, wait, I know this is not good. What should I do with myself? I'm going to ask myself a better question. Like, what, okay, what's good about this scenario? And your brain is going to go, nothing. And you're going to go, okay, what could be good? What's funny about this? What's something I can appreciate about this other person? And it's gonna be hard at first. It's going to be hard. What's cool about it though is with your question of like, hey, I'm running this sort of unconscious pattern, like this default pattern of anger or jealousy or frustration. That is like a learned pattern. You can begin to build other patterns into your repertoire, meaning the more I repeat the asking an empowering question, changing my focus, using the different perceptual positions, expanding how I describe a situation, you can condition that to be a reaction you go to more frequently than the other one. There are a lot of times where like my wife will be like, why aren't you more angry about this? Like, well, how are you not upset right now? And I'm like, well, I'm a weirdo. I don't tell you. You know what I mean? Like but these are the tools that I use because I'm like a nerd about personal development stuff. And so the only two ways I know of that you can really like hammer this home, one is like a very significant emotional event, like something very significant happens in your life, and then like that's your like an example would be like somebody has like a heart attack who was like a smoker eating Krispy Kremes all day. They have a heart attack, they survive, and now they're just a health freak all of a sudden.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like kind of that's pretty classic example. The other way to do it is just through conditioning. It's like working out. You do it all the time. And you don't, this is the key, you don't wait for big, ridiculous events to happen to try this stuff out. You do it today. You know, you do it when you go. I'm in New Jersey, so I was gonna say when you go to like get your gas pumped, then somebody does it for me because we're lazy up here. But you go to like the grocery store, and the lady behind the counter looks like she's like having a bad day. She's acting kind of surly. A natural reaction is like, oh, what's this lady's problem? Perceptual positions. Hey, maybe something happened in her life I don't know anything about. Hey, you look like you're having a tough day. Everything good? And they're gonna go, what? You care? Hope things are looking up. You know, thank you for bagging my groceries. I really appreciate that. Like you have like in this session alone, you have a skill set and a set of tools to use to. I mean, you could change your life. You could change someone else's life in one interaction. So with 2 minutes to spare, Owen, I'm running away with it, but I'll pause there. So we have to wrap up, unfortunately. Um, but hopefully this was helpful and a
Dude,
useful session for everybody.
extremely, extremely helpful. Yeah, so, so good. Yeah, I really appreciate the time, Joe. And this is
Of
all
course.
extremely applicable, usable, and practical, like immediately.
Good.
Immediately
Yeah.
practical. Yeah.
Good. Good.
Amazing stuff. Yeah.
Steph, should we do this again?
Yes.
Awesome.
This
Cool.
was
Cool.
great. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Good.
And
I'm glad.
yeah, and guys, I'll just say this. Joe has tons of stuff. He asked me like, "Hey, what do you want to talk about to talk about?" He's like, "Here are a few topics, right? This is the one that I picked first, right? So there's a ton of other things that we can cover that, I know he's learned a lot, obviously, through the ranks of Tony and Peter Sage and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we can talk about other things another time. But what a great, I'm wanting, you're leaving me wanting more. Like I want more, which is good.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah, this was
You
a fast hour. This is great.
good. Good, good. I'm glad. So definitely I mean this is stuff I'll hang with you guys. If I didn't have this next thing, I would just keep running away with it. But really just appreciate all you, appreciate you, Owen, and obviously, love you as a friend and all that stuff, and excited to continue to do these in the future. So if I'm in the group, I'm in the school group, like you can tag me, ask questions, happy to answer. And if there's a topic that we want to visit another time, let Owen know, like post about it. I'd love to do more of the stuff with you guys for sure.
Dude, thank you so
Super.
much for
Thank
taking the time. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you,
My
Joe.
pleasure. Awesome. All right, y'all. See
you.
you. Have a
My
great one.
God.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great one. Thanks.
All right.